Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is George Kourounis, and I'll be your host for today. We have a busy event to get to. And the first place we need to start is to figure out where in the world the Oosterschelde is right now. So let me bring up a copy of our map here. There we go. If you visit DARWIN200.com, you can find the map there. And you can see where we've been and where we're heading. The last 4 weeks, this map's been a little bit on the boring side because we had just finished crossing the Pacific Ocean over the summer. You can see this massive amount of blue here from South America. And we made our way all the way across, but then spent about 4 weeks here on the North Island of New Zealand, just outside Auckland, because the ship had to undergo some maintenance, repairs, get more supplies on board. As you can imagine, it was a crazy journey to get all the way across the Pacific Ocean over the course of a few months. If I back out a little bit here, you can see that we have set sail. We have a new crew on board, new researchers, new passengers on board, and we are making our way across the Tasman Sea, and we are about halfway to Sydney, Australia. That is going to be our next stop. Once we get to Sydney, we're going to have a whole bunch of live events in Sydney. We'll be at the Opera House. We're going to try a live dive with weedy sea dragons. We're going to go all over the place in New South Wales and have a lot of cool live events for classrooms to come in and join us. As we look backwards on our map, you can see a few pictures and video clips from where we've been so far. Here's a nice picture. This is a picture from the Bowsprit at the front of the ship. Nice little video clip looking back. And then if I move over a little bit, we can take a look at, we've had some followers the last few days, some albatross, 2 different albatross species, which are some of the largest birds on the planet, have been gliding over the ocean and following the ship the last few days, which is pretty cool. There's a few pictures of those albatross. And if we back up a little bit more, we have another video here that's from the ship rounded. It's called the Cape of New Zealand. All right, some beautiful blue ocean there. Okay, so I'm going to come back from that screen share now that you have a feel for where we are and where we're heading. You can visit this map anytime at DARWIN200.com. Go back in time, see pictures and videos from all along this crazy journey we've been taking around this blue marble that we call home. Awesome stuff. Okay, coming back. All right. We have a few things to do today. I had a live uplink with a ship last night. So right now they're sleeping because they're on the other side of the world. But I connected with our researcher and one of our camera guys last night. So I have a little video of that live uplink I'm going to play shortly. We also had a coral scientist join us from Australia last night. Her name's Jennifer Matthews, and she's doing really cool work with baby coral. And so we're going to share that work a little bit later. But before we do that, I have one of our young Darwin leaders backstage who was with us in Brazil, in Salvador, Brazil. So for those who don't know about the Darwin leaders, we have Darwin leaders join us every place we stop in, every port we stop in. They join us for about a week. They go out on a project, one of our conservation partners. They work in the field, gain new skills, create videos for us, and then they go back home to the countries they're from, and they are going to be our next generation of conservationists working on really exciting projects. So I've got João de Rosário joining us. He is backstage right now. I'm going to bring him in once I see his camera turn on, and we're going to talk a little bit about the project he worked on when he was in Salvador, Brazil. So let's see if we can get him in here live with us. João, if you're back there, if you want to turn your camera on, we'd love to have you come in and meet you. There we go. Oh, João, can you grab the mic for me? It's still on mute. No, it's the mic's on mute, João. If you look down at the bottom, it should say mute. I think we got you now.
The microphone. The microphone, yeah.
Yeah, we got you. João, how are you? It's so great to meet you.
I am fine. And you?
Yeah, very good. João, where are you joining us from today? Where are you in the world?
I'm in Cape Verde.
Oh, Cape Verde. Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in Cape Verde from Santo Antão Island.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so great to have you with us. You were back with us very early in the journey. You were with us in Brazil, in Salvador.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, João?
I am a biologist. I'm working from NGO Terrimar here in Santo Antão.
Yeah.
Today, at the moment, I don't work because today is my my holiday. I start my holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky to be able to steal you on your holiday. Thank you so much for joining us in our classroom event today.
Yeah.
João, I'd love to know a little bit about the project you worked on while you were in Brazil. Can you tell us a little bit about the sea turtle project?
I work with Tamar. Hello.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. I just wanted to make you nice and full screen, so we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I work with Tamar project in Salvador, and we work in Praia do Forte, and yes, in Praia do Forte, and I forgot the other place that I work, but it's so in Tamar project we visit the center, and yes, and it's okay.
All right. Perfect. And while you were there, did you have a chance to see any of the sea turtles, whether they were on the beach or did you get to go out into the ocean?
I see the turtle in Pride Fort in the beach. In the beach from we putting the anilles. This is an mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, João, while you were there, you were working with a camera operator and out in the field, and you made a video about the experience. So 3 parts. There's a video about the project, a video about the challenges facing the turtles, and then a video about what we can do in the future. So what do you say? Let's play the first video and take a look at what it was like in Brazil with the sea turtles.
I don't understand the question.
Oh, I'm going to play the first video now for the classrooms to see.
Yes. You can put the video.
Okay, here we go. It's going to load up on my end, and then we're going to get to watch this first video together. Here we go. Here it comes.
Num canto do mundo, nesse preciso momento, uma tartaruga está a caminho do seu novo lar. Este é um cenário de esperança para o planeta e um alívio para os oceanos. As tartarugas marinhas são um exemplo de perfeito de luta e adaptação para o mundo em que vivemos hoje. Mas hoje encontramos uma nova realidade. Ao longo da história, as tartarugas marinhas foram uma das espécies que mais sofreram danos.
A gente tinha o costume de comer tudo que pegava na rede. Antigamente eles botavam a rede, pegavam os peixes, quando caiu uma tartaruga, não era pelo contrário, já estava morta, então não jogava fora. Porque infelizmente o ser humano está degradando o planeta Terra.
E isto ficou escrito na história do Brasil. E tal como nos conta Jorge, no meu país, em alguns lugares, é uma prática que continua a matar as tartarugas marinhas. Viajei de Cabo Verde para o Brasil por mais de 30 horas para entender mais sobre uma outra realidade, conectando-se com especialistas em conservação e entender mais sobre a história das tartarugas marinhas no mundo. Ao chegar, conheci o Projeto Tamar, que é a maior organização de conservação das tartarugas marinhas em todo o Brasil.
Eu sou Neca, sou oceanógrafa, sou diretora de conservação e pesquisa da Fundação Projeto Tamar.
O propósito inicial era um levantamento das espécies marinhas que estavam no litoral do Brasil. E isso foi uma das primeiras turmas de oceanografia no Brasil. Então foi a primeira movimentação da oceanografia brasileira em territórios nacionais, foi essa.
As tartarugas marinhas sofreram muito com a caça excessiva, onde estavam quase a desaparecer completamente. Hoje as tartarugas marinhas enfrentam um dos maiores problemas no mundo, nomeadamente a pesca ilegal, a predação dos ninhos, a ocupação desordenada das praias, entre outros. Nos próximos capítulos falaremos em profundidade sobre os problemas enfrentados pelas tartarugas marinhas e o mundo.
Yes.
All right. João, that was a beautiful video. Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Creating that video. We're going to get a few questions from our classrooms. So if you're joining us via YouTube, you can send questions in the live chat. I'm going to visit. We have a classroom in Chicago visiting us. So I'm going to see if they have any sea turtle questions about your time in Brazil. But the first question I want to ask, João, is with your time in Brazil with the sea turtles, what was the best part, your favorite part of working with the team, with Tamar?
My favorite part.
Yeah.
Is work with the team from Tamar project. And a dog.
Yeah, it's okay.
Work with the childrens in the center from Praia do Forte.
Yeah.
And all things.
All right. So they have a good education program for the kids to learn about the sea turtles?
From the kids we do an capoeira demonstration with the children, the surf lessons with the children, and another thing that I forgot is the interviews with the local people.
Yeah,
is the man George.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's always great to hear from the local community because they know the problem the best. They've lived with it.
Yeah.
So they know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to check in with our group in Chicago. How are we doing today?
Hello.
Do we have any turtle questions? We can take a few questions for
We do
João.
have turtle question, and I can help translate to Portuguese, João, because it's my first language. If you need help, okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Avery is asking a question.
What inspired you to do this job?
Yes. What inspired you to do your job? Qual foi a sua inspiração para se tornar biólogo e estudar tartarugas?
Posso falar em português?
If you do speak in Portuguese, yes, pode falar e I can translate to the students and Joe.
Yes. A minha inspiração para ser biólogo é que eu cresci numa comunidade onde temos muito contato com animais, plantas, aí tive essa inspiração para ser biólogo. Agora, para trabalhar com tartarugas, eu desde o primeiro ano do meu curso, eu trabalhei com tartarugas marinhas, aí me apareceu essa oportunidade, aí agarrei para ir conhecer mais um país através das tartarugas.
Okay, so I'm going to try to translate. So he said he grew up in a community near the beach with lots of animals and plants. So he always liked nature. And then when he went to college in his first year, he had the opportunity to start working with turtles. And he was excited about it. So he could start working with a new animal and then travel to Brazil to learn more about turtles. Is that right, João?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is pretty darn lucky that we have this connection today. That's pretty cool. All right. Do we have another sea turtle question out there?
Haley, want to get up, Haley, so you can be on camera? The camera is right here, sweetie.
Is your job hard?
É trabalho difícil, João? Que dificuldades você tem?
Bom, aqui em Cabo Verde é trabalho muito difícil porque nós lidamos com a apanha de tartarugas marinhas, que é trabalho em que fazemos com muito rigor, porque muitas vezes as pessoas nos deixam, por exemplo, temos 2 praias que patrulhamos à noite, quando vamos para a final de uma praia e vem pessoas, apanhadores atrás para apanhar tartarugas marinhas que é para comer ou vender. Essa que é a parte mais difícil do nosso trabalho.
Okay, this is going to be hard for my students to hear, but he says it's a very hard job in Cabo Verde, where he comes from, because they patrol 2 beaches trying to protect the turtles. But he says, like, when he's finished patrolling a beach, there's already people coming to try and capture the turtles to eat. Either to eat the turtles or to do other things with the shells. So they finish protecting like a beach, and there's always people coming from behind and trying to catch and capture the turtles. So it's very hard to do his job in Cabo Verde.
Yes.
All right. Let's grab one more question from our crew at GEMS.
You want to choose, Ms. Moore? I didn't back the next question. Shane, come on over.
If you didn't have like your turtle job, which job would you have?
Você faria o quê se você não fosse biólogo e estudasse tartarugas, João?
Só faria o quê? Para falar a verdade, eu queria ser matemático, para fazer contas, matemático ou engenheiro de computadores, mas aí desde o 9º ano da escolaridade eu me apaixonei para estudar a biologia das plantas, dos animais, por isso surgiu essa paixão para trabalhar com com os animais e agora mais especificamente nas tartarugas marinhas.
All right. So he said he would like to be a mathematician or a computer engineer because he also likes numbers and computers. But he really fell in love with turtles when he was in 9th grade, and then he decided to become a biologist.
All right. Well, Gem Chicago, thank you so much for those great questions. I'm going to tuck you guys backstage for now. If you guys want to give João a big wave and a thank you, I'm going to ask him a YouTube question, and then we're going to let him.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Joe, as well, right? Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Joe.
Well, we'll see you soon because we still have more in our event. But João, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I had one more question
Thank you.
for you from YouTube. We have someone wondering, what's next? What project are you working on next? Do you have another project?
I don't understand. You have
Oh, maybe we can get some help from.
Yeah. I can use the chat.
Yeah. So there's one more question, and it's what's next? What's the next project João's going to work on?
What's your next project? Qual é o seu próximo projeto como biólogo, João?
Bom, eu como bióloga agora estou trabalhando terminei a campanha das tartarugas marinhas agora em outubro. Agora vou começar outro projeto que é projeto com as plantas endêmicas. Endemic plants.
Okay, so a project with endemic plants to Cabo Verde?
Yes, especially in Santo Antão Island.
Okay, very cool.
But we have one plant is called Carex antoniensis that exists only in Santo Antão.
Okay, I love that.
And other.
Yeah, a lot of people forget about plants. Plants are very important for the ecosystem. So that's very nice to hear. You're protecting plants.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, João, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was great to meet you and great to hear your story.
Thank you. It's a pleasure work with this project, DARWIN200. And thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Well, you enjoy your holiday. Thank you for letting us visit you on your holiday.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks,
bye.
See ya.
Yeah, see you soon.
All right. Very cool. So today's event is taking us all over the world. I'm in Canada. We were talking with our classroom down in the US. We have live streams coming your way from Australia. We have João in Cabo Verde. We really are bouncing a lot today in the world's most exciting classroom. So next up, I am going to play a little clip from the ship. So we caught up with our explorer, George Kourounis, who is on board the ship right now, and Josh, one of our camera operators. And they gave us a little update on what they're seeing on their journey sailing from Auckland, New Zealand to Sydney, Australia, across the Tasman Sea. So let's take a little look at what they're seeing so far as they're making their way across the ocean. Here we go. Get to head live on board the ship because it's moving. There's passengers on board. There's researchers on board. There's crew on board. So let's get on board right now, the Oosterschelde, and let's see who's there waiting for us. All right. Hey, George. Hey, Josh. How you doing?
Hi. All good. Great, Joe.
All right. Great to see you guys. How are things going? How's the sailing?
Yeah, going well. We had a bumpy first couple of days, but it's calmed down a lot now. So we've got some nice wind in the right direction. We've been doing a lot of going in the wrong direction. We've got a bit of time. So to keep sailing, we've just been moving with the wind. But it's finally blowing the right way now. So we're heading straight towards Sydney. And look to increase today. Yeah, even more wind. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's meet the two of you because we have not connected yet with this group of classrooms. So Josh, why don't you start off and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. As Joe said, I'm Josh. I'm one of the full-time camera guys for DARWIN200. So, me and the other guy, Tom, who's not on board at the moment, we sail on the ship as it goes around the world, and we document all the life on board, all the wildlife we see. We take all the photos, we make all the videos, and then when we're in port, we work with the Darwin leaders, and we make the films for the Darwin Leader projects with them. So yeah, I've worked for the project basically since the beginning, since Tenerife, and I've had the chance to go to some really cool places and film some things I never even dreamed that I would film, and meet some awesome people along the way.
All right, very cool, Josh. I'm going to ask you a couple questions in a moment, but George, why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself?
Oh, thanks so much. My name is George. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm a professional explorer. I'm with the Explorers Club. I'm also explorer in residence with the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. I specialize in extreme places and weather, things like that. And this is my first time on board the ship. I've been here for about a week now on board, and it's been an amazing experience. We've seen some really, really cool stuff. I'm also helping out with some of the research that's being done on board, which I'll talk about more in a bit.
Perfect. Well, Josh, you know, you've been on board for quite a while. You and I have met up in a few areas around the world. Can you share maybe a highlight or two from the journey so far? Something you did, something you saw, something you filmed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first one that always jumps to mind for me is, if it's a sailing leg that I've done, it would be sailing through the Chilean fjords. That was absolutely incredible. A lot of the time when you sail on the ship, you sort of leave the port, and then 6 hours later, you don't see land anymore, and then you don't see land again until 6 hours before you arrive. But sailing through the Chilean fjords, we had amazing views every day, huge mountains jutting out of the water. We managed to sail right up to a huge glacier. I think it was the 4th biggest glacier in the world outside of Antarctica or something. And then to top it all off, towards the end, we got to spend a few hours in a bay hanging out with a load of blue whales, which was just amazing. But as well as that, I think as far as a location I've been goes, the Falkland Islands really tops it for me, because I'm a penguin man. I love my penguins, and there's a lot of penguins in the Falkland Islands. So yeah, that was an unforgettable time, and I'm lucky enough to be heading back there again in February. So hopefully more penguins.
All right, very cool. Well, we have some great footage from the Falkland Islands. I'll probably share that in a future event. And of course, we're going back there. So hopefully we can get some of those satellite units out onto the island, maybe even in one of those colonies. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. All right, George, let's get you in for a little bit. We'd love to hear a little bit about your experience on the tall ship so far. Have you ever sailed on a tall ship before? And then let's get into what you've been seeing.
Yeah, I've sailed in various places around the world. I've sailed around Cape Horn in a small sailboat and spent a lot of time at sea, but never on a ship like this. This over 100 years old, this beautiful schooner. It's absolutely magnificent. So it's a real treat for me to be on board. And there's a lot going on. Let me get my screen sharing here so I can show you some of the stuff that we've got going on. And there we go. There we are. So there I am with the historic flag of the Explorers Club. That particular flag has a lot of history. It's been to dozens of different expeditions all over the world. And it has been on this entire journey. And as a member of the club, it's a real honor for me to be able to hold that and carry that on this leg of the journey. But the main reason why I'm sort of here is doing a bit of research, gathering some environmental DNA. So what is that? Well, we as organisms leave a trail of ourselves behind us wherever we go. We are always having skin cells that are sloughing off, or fish are swimming through the water and there'll be bits of scale and fecal matter and whatnot that come off of them. And if we sample the environment that they live in, we can determine by the residual DNA what creatures have been here recently. And that's what we're doing right now. So here's a sample I took this morning of the seawater off of the starboard side of the ship. And basically what we do is we gather this water and filter it so that we get rid of the water and then keep all of the other bits that happen to be floating in the water. And this includes all kinds of various cells from all of the creatures that are in this area. And then that those filters can then be sent to a lab to be processed to find out what creatures have been at this particular location. So every day I'm taking GPS measurements, measuring the temperature and the acidity of the water, and gathering these water samples. I don't know right now what creatures live near where the ship has been going, but we will be able to know once these samples have been analyzed, which is pretty cool. So you don't need to even be able to see the creatures to know that they have been in the area. So it's a really non-invasive, very sort of environmentally friendly way of doing wildlife surveys and biodiversity studies, things like that. Now, I spend a lot of my time chasing extreme weather. I chase tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. And the weather out here on the ship has been really fascinating to me. It's so beautiful. We get these beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And we've encountered a few different natural phenomena that I kind of want to share with you guys because they're sort of rare but really interesting, and a little bit about how they come about. So here's an example. There's the the sails here on board the ship. And the other day we had this beautiful ring around the sun, and that's called a solar halo. And they're actually not super uncommon, just people don't know to look for them. And they typically only appear when you have very thin clouds that are consistent and very high up in the atmosphere. We call these cirrus clouds or cirrostratus clouds. And on a couple of occasions on the journey now, we've seen these. So this one was from about 3 or 4 days ago. And then here we had another one from, I think it was day before yesterday. So I'm aiming right at the sun, and you can see this ring around the sun. And if you were to take your thumb and block the sun with your thumb and then extend your pinky finger, that's about how far away from the center of the sun that halo looks like to us here on the surface of the Earth. And the physics behind it is a little complicated, but I'll simplify it. Basically, sunlight is passing through ice crystals up in the atmosphere, and they're very specific ice crystals. They have to have 6 sides, so hexagonal ice crystals. And by having a plain, flat sheet of these up in the clouds, in these cirrostratus clouds, the light hits them and splits into its various components, kind of like how a rainbow works. That's why you see these colors, these reds and sort of oranges. So it's kind of like a circular rainbow, but instead of using raindrops, it's basically powered by these ice crystals that are high up in the atmosphere. So we've been super lucky to spot a few of those. You can see these wherever you live in the world. They're not dedicated to certain parts of the planet. So if you've got a day that has really high sort of wispy clouds, block the sun with your hand and take a peek up, and you might see some of these. Really, really interesting. Now, 2 days ago, we saw something that really got me excited. There's this phenomenon known as the green flash. And it's really hard to see, but it's one of those things that if you capture it, it's quite special. Mariners and sailors have been talking about the green flash and legends of the green flash. It happens right at sunset, the moment the sun dips below the horizon. Now, we've all seen lots of sunsets, and we know that the sun, when it gets low in the sky, it takes on that orange or yellowish globe, in the circle kind of shape. But sometimes it gets a bit distorted as it gets closer to the horizon. And then very rarely, when the sun, just in the last few seconds before it disappears, that yellowish color will turn a bright green, literally for less than half a second. And that's what happened the other day. Here's a zoomed in shot. You can really see that bright green. And the reason why this happens has to do with what's going on in the atmosphere. So as that sunlight is passing through the Earth's atmosphere, it bends a little bit, but not all of the colors bend the same amount. So if you have a layer of warm air over top of a layer of cooler air, the sunlight will bend, and that green color will be the one that we sometimes see on these rare occasions. Here's a photo of one that I took up in the Arctic a few years ago. So I've seen them in the Arctic, and now I've seen them here in the South Pacific. And if you're on the beach and you're watching the sunset, you'll sometimes see the sun take on this weird, distorted shape, kind of looks a bit like a lampshade. And then there in the last few moments before the sun completely fades out, the top will sometimes burst with this bright flash of green color. And it really is an emerald green, but it only lasts a fraction of a second. So here we can see we've got that warm air near the surface. You've got cooler air, which is a bit more dense. And so as the sunlight passes through these different layers, it sort of splits. And then we here at the surface see that green. But please, please don't stare at the sun. Don't look at the sun. Protect your eyes from the sun. It's only in those last few seconds where the sun is filtered by our atmosphere that it's kind of safe to look at the sun in those last few moments. And if you're really, really, really lucky, you'll encounter that green flash. You have to have a very clear horizon all the way out to the western horizon. No clouds, no mountains, no buildings in the way. So the best place to see this is either on a boat or at the beach looking west at sunset. So there's just a couple of examples. There's a really good example of a green flash. That photo's not mine. I wish it was. But there you can really see that yellow disk of the sun in the last few moments of its setting with that little bit of green light that's being bent by our atmosphere, kind of like bending a piece of plastic, and only the green color is appearing at the top there. So yeah, just some amazing stuff that we're seeing out here. I don't know what we're going to see over the next week before we finally make it to Australia.
All right. So really cool to be able to catch up with George and Josh last night on board the Oosterschelde. Like I said, they're on the other side of the world, so they're sleeping right now. That's why we have to do it as a recorded clip. But George is really passionate about weather, and he's been observing some really cool phenomena like those sun halos and like the green flash. It's pretty unique to get a chance to see the green flash like that. So the last thing we're going to do today in our event is we're going to meet Dr. Jen Matthews. She's a coral scientist. She's going to talk a little bit about the research she does with baby coral. And after we check out the clip we have from her, we're going to have a Kahoot quiz. So we'll have a chance to play some Kahoot and see what you learned about corals. So I'm going to load up our video from Jen. She's in Sydney, Australia, and she's joined us for several speaking things in the past. So it was great to have her join us on a Darwin 200. To bring in coral biologist Jennifer Matthews. She's joining us from Sydney, Australia. Her research tries to understand the cellular processes that underpin coral health and function. So she wants to better inform conservation activities to help safeguard the world's coral reefs. I'm going to bring in her in with us right now. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's great to see you. We've got you in Australia. I'm all the way here in Canada. The ship is coming your way, and we've done a few of these events together, but I'll actually get to see you in Australia in about a week. That'll be pretty cool.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, and I wish I was actually on the Great Barrier Reef, but Sydney is just as magical. We have some corals here as well. But yeah, thank you for inviting me to the world's most exciting classroom.
All right. Well, we're thrilled to have you. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions that will come in during the event. So any classrooms tuning in, put questions in the chat as they come to you. And Jen, I'll let you take over for a little bit and share with us a little bit of what you get up to.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, I am the Deputy Team Leader of the Future Reefs Group at the University of Technology, and we are a group that basically researches coral health in order to protect them for future generations to enjoy. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today specifically about one particular life stage of corals, and that's coral babies. So before I start, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and sea country on which UTS stands, as well as the Irukandji and the Gunganji people, where a lot of the research that I took where they're from. And I want to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and recognise them as the first scientists and knowledge keepers of the land and sea, and welcome any First Nation people here today. So coral reefs are foundational ecosystems. They have immense ecological, economic and cultural value. And healthy reefs actually can support about 7,000 marine species. That's about 25% or a quarter of all marine species. They provide billions of dollars and millions of jobs. They help protect our coastlines and are actually an important source for new medicines. So medicines for Alzheimer's and cancer have actually been found from corals. And here in Australia, we are home to the iconic Great Barrier Reef, the only living structure in the world that can be seen from space. But unfortunately, without help, coral reefs like the Great Barrier Reef may not survive this century. For example, increasing sea surface temperatures is causing the catastrophic loss of corals in our lifetime and on our doorstep. And this has led to international calls to increase our knowledge of what determines their health and also their resilience to climate change or environmental changes. And hopefully with this knowledge, we can better inform conservation and restoration strategies and help to safeguard the coral reefs and the services that they provide. And here's an example of some of the ways that we help reefs. Whether it's buying time for them through conservation and restoration, monitoring their health through to help inform policies, or researching what makes a more resilient coral. All of these are really important mechanisms to help saving our reefs, or as I said, at least buy time for them while we get our act together on climate change. And that's what I've dedicated my life to doing, whether it's research in the field or in the lab, or it's outreach or education. I hope to make a meaningful contribution to the protection of coral reefs. So I'm not sure if you know, but what is a coral? Do you think it's an animal, plant, or just a rock? Well, it's actually a trick question because it's all three. There is the animal that looks and is very similar to a jellyfish, but they also have inside their tissues these tiny single cell plants or algae. And just like you and I, corals need nutrients to thrive and survive. They need food. And for the coral animal, they can get the food from the seawater using their tentacles, like you see here on the left, but they can also get a lot of their nutrients from that algae in their tissues. And it also gives them those amazing colors that you see, especially when you put them under UV light, like I'm showing here. They become fluorescent, like little neon animals. And being an animal, they also reproduce. Corals actually produce millions of babies each year. And it's in a magical event that's actually a few days after full moon in spring. And the next one, would you believe it, is in about 10 days. So if you live near a reef and you're able to get out there, it's definitely worth a visit. But unfortunately, less than 1% of these coral babies ever survive. And this is mainly thought to be because they just don't have the energy. They don't have enough food to make it through to adulthood. Again, just like us humans, food is a basic need, and coral baby nutrition, we know so little about it. And that's kind of the gap I'm trying to currently solve. I'm essentially researching whether we can help coral babies by feeding them with a coral baby food. And if we can improve their survival and the number of those millions of babies that make it through to adulthood, that will increase the diversity and the number of corals on reefs. And as Darwin described, this is essential for organisms to evolve to new environments. So you can see some little coral babies swimming around here. And I was very fortunate to receive funding from the Pure Ocean Foundation to investigate this. Essentially, we capture some of these coral babies during these mass spawning events, like the one in a few days, and we feed them with something called lipid nanoparticles, which are just a fancy way of saying balls of fat. And essentially, with these little balls of fat, we hope to nourish them. And we're doing this both in the lab as well as directly on the reef. And we hope that these chubby, nourished little corals can then be grown to help restore and rebuild degraded reefs. And so I'd like to take you through one of our recent trips where we actually went out to the Great Barrier Reef to Moore Reef with Reef Magic, an ecotourism operator on the Great Barrier Reef, to feed some coral babies. And talk about a lab with a view. This is how we set up our lab before the corals started to spawn. And we deployed underwater these kind of tents, essentially, that collect the coral babies as they are released into the water after the sun sets. They release the eggs, and the eggs float up into that little container at the top, and then we can bring those back to the lab. And so now it's spawning time. Corals release these egg and sperm bundles into the water as well. So there were some that obviously we didn't put tents over all of the corals. So some of them just released into the water. But the ones that we were able to collect, we brought them back to the lab and we fertilized them in the lab. And the picture on the right there is actually freshly fertilized coral babies. They are in a stage that we call the prawn crisp stage or the prawn cracker stage. Over the next few days, we then monitor their health and their numbers and make sure that they're doing well. And this is until it takes about 2 days for them to form a mouth. Once they've got a mouth, then it's time to feed them, essentially. And we either do this in the lab, as I mentioned, or we put them into nurseries, which are just made out of floating paddling pools with the bottom cut out of it. And we use these nurseries to help provide them with a nice, safe place that they can become juvenile or swimming baby corals before we feed them. It means that they're not going to be eaten by fish or predators, and they've got a nice, safe place to to grow up. And then it's time to feed them. So this is some of the food, the baby food that we gave them. And we did this in collaboration with the Gunganji and Irukandji people and the sea rangers on the Great Barrier Reef. And you can see here, I am feeding the coral babies in their little nurseries out on the reef. And because the little balls of fat, they're all biodegradable. So even if the larvae don't eat them, the babies don't eat them, then the fish can, and they get a nice supper too. So one of the really interesting and surprising results that we found was not just that by feeding them can we enhance their survival, but we can also make them swim better. And so you can see here a little video of some coral larvae that we didn't feed on the left. They're swimming nice and slowly, nice and carefully, but when you feed them, they do little coral zoomies. They go a lot faster and a lot further. And this is really important when we're thinking about things like reef connectivity. This is how reefs in longer distances apart are able to be connected through reproduction. For example, if a larvae is able to swim better and further and faster, and then in a healthy reef could help to restore a neighboring degraded reef just by having better swimming larvae. And as I mentioned, we also supported their survival. So when we didn't feed them, we saw a survival rate of about 37 to 45%, but by feeding them, that rate went up to about 70 to 88%. So quite a substantial increase. But what we also found was if we exposed them to heat stress, like increased sea surface temperatures, we had a survival rate in unfed larvae of between 30 to 39, but when we fed them, that survival rate was still up and around 60 to 65%. So we're not only improving their survival under normal conditions, but under predicted climate change conditions as well, which is really important when we're thinking about how corals into the future and how reefs are going to look into the future. So once they're ready and once they've been fed, then it's time to what we call settle them, which means giving them a chance to become baby or young adults. They settle onto tiles. They really like to grow on rocks. So you can kind of see the little ones here. They're seeking a little place to grow, find a nice place to grow. This is on a boat, so it was a bit rocky for them, but they did eventually grow on these tiles, and we can put them back onto the reef so that they can mature into adult corals. And then when they're big enough, then they could even help to restore entire reef systems. We can select areas that have been degraded from maybe cyclone events or from recent impacts from maybe boats or weather events, that kind of thing. And with any luck, we can help to regrow and restore some of these degraded reefs. And these kind of projects are not going to save reefs. I'm not saying that this is the answer to save reefs, but unless we take serious action on climate change, then all they're going to do is buy time for reefs. But they do highlight how some basic biology, like food, are really, really important avenues to explore when we're thinking about protecting reefs in Australia and beyond. And so thank you so much for your time. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some of the research that we're doing. And if you're interested in studying coral reefs, then yeah, please come and give me an email, shoot me an email. I always love talking about corals.
All right. So really lucky to have Jen join us in Sydney, Australia, and share the work she's doing with corals. Now, let's see how well you were paying attention. I'm going to load up this Kahoot quiz, and we will give classrooms joining us today an opportunity to play along. So if you would like to join us, you need to go to kahoot.it, and then it's going to ask you for a PIN number. 05990. Jump on that way and join us. If not, that's okay. Maybe your teacher could pop this up at the front of the classroom. You could shout out your answer to him or her. Or then your other option is, if you're at home, you can scan the QR code and use that to come in and join us. Or if you can't log on at all, that's perfectly fine. You can still play along and see how well you do. So we'll give a couple seconds, see if we have a group or two come in here and join us today. And then we will go ahead with our live Kahoot quiz. So there are 5 questions. There's some true and false, some multiple choice. And then, like I said, the quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you are going to get. All right. Looks like we got a couple classes in here with us today, so let's get started because we have to wrap up shortly for today. We're almost at the end of our hour. So, first question coming your way. Is a multiple choice question. What services do corals provide? So, coast protection, medicines, nursery habitat for fish, or all of the above. So we got a couple more seconds to get that answer locked in. All right. So the best answer is all of the above. Coast protection. We can find new medicines, beautiful nursery habitats for fish. All 3 of those things are things coral provide for us. All right. That puts the nimble gator up there in first place. Let's go to our next question. This is a true or false question coming your way. The Great Barrier Reef is one of several natural-made objects that we can see from space. Is that true or is that false? The Great Barrier Reef is one of several natural-made objects that can be seen from space. All right, that is false. It is the only object made by living things that we can see from space. There are not a whole bunch of different things we can see. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for over 1,000 miles all the way along the coast of Queensland in Australia. All right, nimble gators hanging on to that top spot. Let's go to our next question. This is a tricky one. This is a multi-select. That means you need to pick every answer you think is a good fit. So coral is a plant, rock, bacteria, or animal. So which of those are you going to pick? Is it a plant, rock, bacteria, or coral? Is it 2 of those, 3 of those, or even all 4? A multi-select question. We've got a couple more seconds. All right. As we learned from Jen, plant, rock, animal, all components that make up a coral reef. Bacteria was the odd one out in that question. Okay, Nimble Gator is holding on to that top spot. Let's go to our next question. This is a true or false question. Corals produce millions of babies each year. Is that true or is that false? That corals produce millions of babies each year. True or false? Couple more seconds. All right, good job, crew. That is absolutely true. Millions of babies each year when the corals spawn. Let's see what happened there. Okay, Nimble Gator is still holding on. We have one more question to go. It is a true or false question. 10% of coral babies survive to adulthood. So is that true or is that false? That 10% of coral babies survive to adulthood. All right. That is false. It's actually much lower. 1%. 1% of coral babies survive to become an adult, attach themselves somewhere, and begin to grow in the ocean. So, in third place, we've got the Elated Bunny. In second, we've got the Diligent Gnu. And holding down that top spot, do we have a new leader? We do. The Red Finch sneaking in at the end and taking that top spot. Really cool. If you are the classroom that contains the Red Finch, I need you to send me a message to classroom@darwin200.com. I'll put that up here in a banner. If you are in the classroom with the Red Finch, send me a message to classroom@darwin200.com. We have an Amazon gift card for your classroom. So send me that message and I will get that gift card sent to your classroom. All right. Well, we are at the end of today's event. We are going to end with our curiosity of the week, like we do every week. First, we have a 30-second video that is going to share the answer for last week's curiosity. Then we have a 30-second video that has our brand new curiosity for this week. So let's take a look at last week's curiosity.
Welcome back, everyone. For last week's curiosity, I asked you to try and work out how the land crabs of Christmas Island can live on land. Most crabs live in water, but how is it that these very special crabs can walk around on land? I also asked, what do you think they eat? And why do they undertake their famous migration down across the island to the coasts? And what do they do when they finally get to the water? Over the last week, a lot of you sent in answers, and many of you got it absolutely correct. Well, to answer the first part of the question, how these crabs live on land, the answer is these crabs have very specialized gills within their carapace or shells. The gills allow the crabs to breathe air, but they must remain moist. So even though these crabs live on land, they still have a connection to the water because they mustn't ever dry out. If they dry out, they can't breathe, and of course would then die. For the second part of the question, I asked you what these crabs eat. Well, they're herbivores and omnivores. They mostly eat leaf litter, chewing up old leaves and wood, fruit, flowers, and any leaf litter they can find. But they will scavenge and eat any dead meat that they come across, such as the bodies of dead animals. For the last part of my question, I asked you why these crabs migrate across Christmas Island down to the coasts. Well, even though these crabs live on land, they have to release their eggs into the seawater. So the females march across the island all the way down to the seashore. There, they open their tails, which are curled underneath their bodies, and they release thousands, if not millions of eggs per crab out into the sea. The eggs can be so numerous that the seawater can turn black. The eggs then hatch out at sea, and several weeks later, the tiny baby crabs, known as megalops, return back to Christmas Island on the tide and march inland, and the life cycle starts again. Did you correctly guess the answers to these rather crabby questions?
All right. So that was our curiosity last week. Those were from Christmas Island crabs. So you learned a little bit about the really cool migration they do on the island each year. Let's take a look at this week's curiosity before we say goodbye for today.
This week's curiosity is this strange object here. It has perfectly flat, square sides, and it's cubic in shape. Even though this looks so strange, I promise you it does occur naturally. What do you think this might be? Send in your best guess to classroom@darwin200.com for a chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize. Good luck, and thank you for taking part.
All right, so there's our curiosity of the week. You have 1 week to try and take your best guess for what it is and send your guesses to classroom@darwin200.com, and we will have a $50 Amazon gift card for one classroom. I have one of those here in my office as well. So Stu had one in his Darwin studio, and then you can see I have one here coming out of this piece of rock. It is a cube shaped. It is very shiny. It also comes in different forms. So I have another piece of the same material here, but you can see it's in a different form, more of a rock form. It's still very shiny. And then if you look really closely, the camera probably can't zoom in. It's got tiny, tiny little cubes that make up this as well. But then this is the form that Stu was showing you from the Darwin studio. So 1 week, send your best guesses to classroom@darwin200.com, and we will have a gift card for one classroom next week. Well, there we go. It is time to say goodbye and wrap up our world's most exciting classroom event. I hope you enjoyed bouncing around the world with us, meeting some cool people. And then, yeah, I hope you'll take your best shot at this week's curiosity. Before we go, though, I do have to give a shout out to our sponsors, supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't be sailing around the world, having young researchers on board, training conservation leaders, and everything that we're doing with the world's most exciting classroom. So thank you to our partners, to our supporters. Thank you to the classrooms who joined us today, those who will tune into the recording later, and we hope to see you again next week. Thanks, everyone.